Welcome to the Funniest Person podcast. I'm your host, Brian Miller, and we're here to talk about an amateur comedy contest that's been going on for 30 years and has produced some of the funniest comedians in the entire world. We're here now with 2020 winner, Funniest Person, Lisa Evanson.
Hey!
Hey! You're the next to last winner.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Because Mallory won it this past year.
Yes. Yep. Right? But time flies, especially during quarantine when you're like in and out of comedy. So you won it in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
We just talked to Aiden McCluskey, who was the 2018 winner.
Yeah.
And you started doing comedy. We'll kind of start back and get to the contest. Yeah. I know you were doing comedy well before the contest because you used to come to my open mic all the time.
Yep.
Red Menace, R.I.P. Fun mic is no longer.
Yes. Oh, I was wondering. Well, obviously pre-pandemic.
But restaurants closed.
Yeah.
They lost. So they might open a new restaurant. So maybe I'll start a new mic. We'll see.
You should absolutely do that.
We'll see.
Yeah. I started late spring, summer 2018. So I competed in the contest 3 times.
Okay. I was going to ask you. So you did it several times before you won.
Yeah. So the first time I competed was my 4th time ever on stage.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you start doing it to prep for did the contest incite you to start, or you already kind of started and then saw there was a contest?
The latter. So my buddy tried it in April of 2018, around then.
The contest or just stand-up?
Sorry, just stand-up.
Sure.
Yes. Well, his first time, actually. And so as just a street pedestrian, I had found out about Sisyphus. And so I really was only familiar with Acme and Sisyphus. So when he was asking me where he recommended to try his first time, I said, try it at Sisyphus so then you can be better to use your star at Acme.
Sure.
And then watching...
good advice, by the way. I always tell people that. Give it a couple of weeks before you do your first one.
Right.
Just a couple of weeks.
Yeah. And so in seeing him, and I heard you talking to Aiden about this, and seeing him and other people not do as great, it just evoked this competitive spirit of if they're doing it, I should do it. Because flashback 7 years prior, I had tried stand-up once before at Acme. So my first time was here in 2011.
Oh, wow. You were quite young then.
Yeah,
you're still pretty young now, but you were you were fresh out in college probably.
I was a sophomore at the U.
Sure.
I remember having to take a special pass from sorority, formal dinner and meeting night. And that's, I think, why I never came back, is because I wasn't allowed to because of Greek life. And then
weird.
Then I got kicked out. And that's a whole other story. But
that's so weird. But why wouldn't they? Was it because you had to do something on Monday nights?
Yes, it's the formal dinner and meeting where all 100 of you gather for dinner and then have your chapter meeting. And
that
there's
sounds like a nightmare.
Votes and yays and nays and hoorah, kumbaya. Yeah. So didn't do it again. And then so I had that background of in watching him. I was like, I've done it once before. Maybe I should try it again.
What made you do it the first time?
Bucket list, and then paired with the fact that I was doing one of those mandated general arts class required for my major, and for the final project it was very open to interpretation. So I was like, oh, I'm gonna go watch a comedy show and write about that. And I'm an optimizer, so I was like, if I'm gonna go to a comedy, well, first it was I don't have the money for a comedy show, so I'm gonna go to the free open mic night.
Sure.
And if I'm gonna go, I might as well just do it.
I think that's a good impulse.
Yeah, which I've learned many people are like, that logic, not a lot of people would have made that leap.
Yeah, but I don't know. I mean, you don't know what you're going to like until you do it. I mean, I think there's a lot of people that think they're going to be good at stand-up or always fantasize that they would. They do it one time and they go, oh my God, that's so much harder and different and I hate it. And there's some people who never thought about it much and they do it and go, oh, dang, that's pretty fun.
Yeah. You hear about, you watch interviews with, the world's best comedians, and I can't tell you how many times they've referenced that first time. I just knew it. I knew that it was game over. This is it for me. And I was always kind of jealous because I never really had that feeling. And I don't know if part of it was the nerves. I remember it in 2011. I remember it in 2018. The nerves just ate me alive. And I think people thought I was joking, where for months I couldn't go on stage without taking Imodium first because the nerves would trigger my IBS so badly.
I believe that.
I would literally be pooping.
We'll bleep that.
My brain's...
I actually got Everybody Poops banned from the library. I'm a big book banner, so no bueno. This is going to the schools of America.
I'm so sorry.
We don't want young boys thinking girls poop. That is erroneous information, and I won't have it.
Forgive me, Mother Teresa. Yeah, so...
But no, that makes perfect sense. I was the same way. People talk about, the first time I do it, I knew it. I was so miserable with nerves the first probably 5 or 10 times that it kind of wasn't fun because I was so nervous. And then I let go of that, and then it was fun.
Then there's that sweet spot. And all it takes is one joke to like be your anchor. And I will say I have to give so much kudos to people who don't gain traction in any of their jokes their first few times. Because what happened was my first time on stage, I'm just gonna call it 2018 my first time.
Yeah. Fair enough.
I had a bit that just really worked. And so I got to fine tune that for a few months. And so I just gained this confidence to keep coming back. You know, it was still really scary despite those nerves. But then I heard about the contest. So then it was motivation to curate the perfect 3 minutes.
Sure.
And then I got laid off after the contest. I got laid off.
They must have really not liked you.
Oh gosh.
I assume that wasn't connected.
It was a massive company layoff. It was a bummer. It was like my dream job, but at the time. But then that layoff story, so that happened July 31st, and then the next day I had my first ever 10-minute set for New Kids showcase at Sisfis. And that was so raw. I don't know if I've ever been like in the pocket where it's almost that magic. You can't even put your finger on it. Like, just there was a magic on stage, I think, because I was so insanely sad and in shock and raw. And then that carried me for the next several months. So I just lucked out. But then talk about the contest times or even just spending the 1, 2, 3 years in comedy that I did. For some reason, it felt harder and harder to find those like unicorn bits that really stuck and really worked for a while. So I feel like I had a reverse trajectory compared to a lot of comedians who build up to their good stuff. I feel like I had really good stuff, and then I really struggled to like maintain that momentum.
Sure. No, that makes sense. I mean, sometimes you come up with a really good joke early. A couple of jokes that I still do on occasion, I came up with really early. They were total outliers for that time. Like, everything else was garbage. But for whatever reason, those two, I don't know, they're good jokes, and they keep working.
Yeah.
So that can happen. But you're right though that you have that. It was probably nice at the beginning to be like, well, if I do the zoo bit, I know I'll be fine, kind of thing.
Yeah, and it also creates a false sense of like, oh, I'm really good, I'm a natural. And then so there's this like hills and valleys that again are in reverse order where I wasn't bombing in the beginning, and so then when I bombed later, it just felt more painful. Because it felt like, in my mind, I was like, I'm a prodigy. You're like, oh, I guess I'm not.
Well, also, you haven't, like, usually, at least when you bomb first, then when you find out what not bombing is like, you're like, oh, that's a pleasant surprise. Versus like, oh, it can be this bad. It's a tough way to go.
Yeah, and I can't help but feel like a lot of comedians are like this, but I'm such a perfectionist, and I know everyone says that, but like truly like OCD
I'm not,
level.
I half-ass most stuff. Perfectionist.
But like, it's just
I'm a good
hard.
enoughnist.
You're a good enoughness.
Yeah.
See, I genuinely wish I could be that way. And because in the beginning, I would write word for word my sets.
Oh, I used to do that.
I would even write the hoes and the ums and the ah. And then I would have to memorize that. And then that was more pressure on me to have memorized every little thing. So then when I came on stage, it was like if I couldn't remember one word, I would crumble. So then I heard the advice of like, just have the premise and build off of that. So it was finding that sweet spot.
Yeah.
To not be overly prepared, but not underprepared.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So you did the contest the first year, 2018. You did that. So you'd done comedy some at that point.
3 times.
Yeah. Oh, 3 times. Right. So you did that. How did you do the first time? Did you make it out of the first round?
No, I did not.
You did your bit. You did the bit that worked, though, right? The one that
yes.
you did. What was the bit that you worked that you?
The office humor. You work with a bunch of women. We open the box of donuts, and they've all been halved and quartered.
Yep.
I think I had the jelly donut at that time, which is still like my most infamous joke, which is again weird because it's like one of the first ones I ever wrote. But yeah.
So you did that. Didn't make the next round, but you kept doing comedy after that.
Yes.
Because I would just see you came to Red Menace and you would do in my mic.
Yep.
So then you just kind of became a regular open micer. At that point, you're like, I'm going to keep practicing this and keep doing this.
Yeah.
So then the next year the contest rolls around. Were you keeping that on the horizon the whole time? Or you're like, I'm gonna do better next year?
Yeah.
You were like staking it out. You were like intentionally just kind of staying amateur and getting ready, like doing mics and getting ready to do the next contest.
Yeah, I was actually deliberately turning down shows because I heard that you couldn't get paid to compete in the contest, and so I was turning down paid opportunities.
I did that because a couple of times I would get offers for like a $50 MC thing, and I'd be like, well, it's not worth not getting to do the contest in
Right.
3 months for this one $50 thing.
Yeah.
At a certain point, that weight will flip, but I did the same thing. I emceed for free for a little bit so I could do the contest and for 1 year. And then I was like, all right, I'm taking money now.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was, it was worth it for me.
Totally.
And then I think that second time around, so I was just over a year in, I got past the first round. I made it to semifinals, but I did not make it to finals.
Were you still doing the office humor jelly donut joke?
I don't remember what I competed with that year.
Because at that point you had more jokes because you've been doing mics and
Right.
stuff.
Yeah, I probably did more of the layoff material.
Sure.
Because by that point, like I had a ton, but the layoff material just kept staying at the top as resonating the best. Maybe I think I had some mom jokes in there. Maybe.
Sure. But you got to the semis that year. So you kind of had you first round knocked out, then you got knocked out in the second round, and then you made it to the finals and won the third year.
Yeah.
Then the second year now were you disappointed, by the way, the second year when you didn't make the finals?
I was.
No shame in that, but I look at people like, I was just happy to participate. No, we're all very competitive.
No, I am wildly, insanely, stupidly competitive. One thing I do take pride in, though, is like that is normal to feel that way, but I don't let it affect the way I treat others. Like
that's nice.
Still always, and I think that's the toughest part about stand-up is people who can feel that way about you and they let you know.
Oh yeah.
Whereas I'm like, no, it's normal. What's not normal is for you to treat someone with any less respect or kindness as a result. So while I felt that way, it was like, no, I'm not going to let that change how I treat the craft or treat people. I'm just going to do better next year.
And that would have been 19.
Yeah, Charlie won that year.
Right? That was Aiden just reminded me of that because I was trying to. That was the year I forgot. Who was in the year with Charlie? Was Toby in that year? Toby Shamu?
Gosh.
I was trying to remember with him because he beat a couple of people that were like fan favorites.
Wasn't Sam Dickey?
Yeah, Sam Dickey was in it. He did a very good job.
Toby?
I wasn't there that year. I wasn't there your year either because that was
And then Ruth was in it. Yeah, and I can't remember who the other.
Yeah. That was 20. Yeah, 20. So that was the year you had not. You didn't do that year. That was the next year. Yeah, you won.
Right. Yeah.
Next year, right.
Year one didn't advance.
So now you're kind of you're a little annoyed that you didn't advance, but you're still in it. And you definitely kept doing comedy after that. I mean, obviously, because you were.
Yep.
I again saw you with my mic.
I
remember you being around a lot. Were you tempted even then to be like, all right, I'm just gonna like take some money. I'm not doing this again, or like were you like, I'm gonna win this dang contest?
No, it just kept narrowing in my focus.
You were just like obsessive about the contest. I
wouldn't call it obsessive, but I was like delightfully determined.
Well, I think it's a good goal early on, because like obviously if you're trying to set a career in comedy, especially, there's markers where you're like, okay, I want to get on the Tonight Show, maybe. Well, okay, that can't be step one. So like step one, I'm going to keep getting better and I'm going to try to win this contest. And then I'm going to try to get, this next thing.
Yeah, for me, it's more like I know I'm capable, therefore I should achieve it.
Okay. Kind of secret-y.
Not
exactly. It's not like visualizing. It's like, if I can, why shouldn't I?
As opposed to say I entered the world's best person comedy contest, I'm probably not going to win it. Therefore, I don't feel capable, but I'll still participate. Whereas like the Acme contest felt capable of winning. So I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure that my efforts match that capability.
Okay. Do you feel like did you like change your strategy or like learn more about how the contest worked and got like better at the contest? Obviously you were getting better at stand-up because you're just doing stand-up.
Right.
But do you think you got better at the contest?
I think I got better at punching up material. I'm very long-winded. And I would say the difference was actually asking others for advice. Hey, here's my intended 3 minutes. What do you think?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
And people would be like, that's good, but cut that part, move that over here.
Basically it was like, that's not as punchy as you think, or there's some fat to trim there. What's wild is that the way in which I fixed the 3-minute set, like those punchlines were just for the contest, and I never replicated them exactly as that because any other time I did that bit, I let it breathe.
Sure.
And if for nothing more than it feels unnatural for me to be so concise and punchy. So it was very intentional how I wrote it. So it added the pressure because it felt a little bit unlike my style, but I knew I needed like the laugh per minute. Like
3 minutes is not a lot of time. You gotta hustle to pack stuff in there.
Yeah. So it was very intentionally punchline packed.
That's why one-liner comics tend to do maybe a little better than average in the contest.
Yeah.
3 minutes, one-liners, you can pack a lot of stuff in. You know, if you're a long bit person, you got to learn to really crunch that bit down.
Yes. And
which like Daniel Threlo did a great job of taking a 3-minute bit and crunching it down and got second. And like I judged Danielle first. I thought Danielle did a great job, but it was a different approach.
Yeah.
It was Danielle against somebody else who was like a more one-liner person, and it was just a different style.
Yeah.
But
totally.
I do think short and punchy in 3 minutes. You know, people are like, man, they got a lot in there.
Right.
I did kind of the same thing.
If for nothing more than optics, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. It makes you look to the judges like you did more. I mean, you worked really hard at it.
Yeah. You know that when
you
I
don't
looked,
have to be modest and say you were.
No. I was surprised to make it to the finals, and then like once I really sat with it and analyzed, because I want to say the 4 other people I had seen in the semifinals, and so there was just better awareness of like what I was up against.
Sure.
Except for one person, I can't remember his name, but he got second. And I was really worried. I remember standing here and they're about to list off the names. And I was like, I really don't know if my name's going to be called. Like I knew I was going to be second or first.
Sure. But it could have gone either way. I've seen a couple of years ago that way where I was like, I wouldn't have put $5 on it to save my life because I didn't know. Coin toss.
So yes, I was surprised. But it wasn't like, I had no idea.
Yeah. I mean, you've been working toward it. So
yeah, exactly. So it felt
but I think
amazing.
You learned, like you said, doing punchier. It seems like you did learn kind of not just what works best in this contest, but I think that works best in contests. I mean, that's the advice you gave is basically the same advice you would give somebody writing a late night set, which is like, you're going to have to pack a lot of jokes in really fast. You're not going to get to let stuff breathe as much maybe as you want.
Yeah.
So that's all,
Yeah, it reminds me of, I think it was freshman year at the U creative writing class. And I was the type of person where 11 p.m., midnight the night before, start the paper, finish by 4 a.m., boom, bam, done. And that class required you to go through revisions. That was actually part of your grade, were your rounds of revisions. And I remember writing a paper where I was like, holy shit, I didn't know I could write this well. Is this what happens when you have drafts and you work on it? And so the Acme contest was the same way, where I was like, wait, this is what happens when you draft and you hone in and you recraft, because I just never had that patience. It'd be like, oh, it worked on stage, on to the next. And
yeah, I'll keep doing it that way kind of thing. Yeah.
And that's why I also I turned down a lot of shows in the beginning, because I just was like, I don't know, why would I want to do the stuff I've already done? I want to keep working on new stuff. I just want to keep doing open mics and trying new stuff. And there's a thrill with that as opposed to doing what works.
Tell me about it. There's a guy who just got 2 corporates coming up for Valentine's Day this week.
Yep. That's
clean, friendly shows.
Clean as green. Yeah.
How did you celebrate winning the contest? Did you do anything that night? That's after 3 years of
I made out with a boy in the car.
Did you know him?
Yes.
Oh, that's good. I just thought I'd check. He was like, I'm a winner. Open the door. I'm coming in.
I remember everyone cleared out. And yeah, he actually was someone who we reconnected at my semifinals night. I think we knew each other already, recrossed paths on Hinge, but it was very platonic. He's like, oh, I've always wanted to try comedy. So I was like, all right, there's nothing here, but like, yeah, come to my show. And then there was something there. I was like, oh, I forgot. And then so he got to meet with me on that journey winning. And then I just remember the whole space clearing out and him walking to my car and then just having a really great winning makeout sesh. So that is what I did.
Nice. That's good.
I think it was on a Wednesday. So then I went home to bed and worked the next day.
Nice. It was a Tuesday, but yes.
Tuesday.
It's always a Tuesday.
How dare I forget? Yes.
No, you're right. It was a Wednesday. That was before. That was the COVID year. So that was right before we switched to the shows.
You heard it here first. Yeah.
Did you? Oh, that's one thing I wanted to ask you. So your year was the year that we had the lockdown had happened before, so we'd all had to stop doing comedy.
Yes.
Everybody had to stop doing comedy for a few months. How do you think that affected, especially since you'd done the contest?
Yeah.
How did the contest seem affected or different by that being the COVID year?
The fact that I had COVID leading up to it.
Oh, wow.
So I was off stage for like 2 months leading up to the contest.
So you were pretty sick. Oh, this is pre-vaccine, of course. So when you get it.
I was really sick because I remember, even just for context. So leading up to the contest, I remember like I'd be in the bottom 5 every week. I know they say it doesn't matter where you are, but I just remember being like bottom 5 right next to the 7s. Feels so good. And then like maybe I'll get that 7 next week. And then I got COVID and I had it really bad. And it was like 10 weeks at least that I was
Wow.
wiped out. And so I don't remember how it worked. I think maybe I emailed Joe and was like, I basically had a plan where I was like, if I'm still not symptomatic, can I compete in the last possible slot? And then however it worked out, it like barely worked out. And then
Interesting.
I was supposed to compete, and whoever was emceeing that night said, hey, I'm like immunocompromised. I know you're on the mend. I would prefer you don't compete my night. So then we had to move it again. And it was wild. So it was like last possible chance for me to get in. And then it was bizarre because then for open mic nights, it was like all these people who used to be like above me on the list had surpassed me, and it felt like I had to start over from being gone for 2-3 months. It was really weird. But then I had the wind of the winning the contest under my wings.
Sure.
But I remember that really threw me off in my
That's
game in
huge.
general.
2 months off is a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really big. Because at that point that was between waves. So that's when the audience was pretty much back, that summer, early fall. So like comedy was kind of back.
Yeah.
But you had to take essentially, and you'd had to take it off a few months before when like, we all had to take off.
Yep.
So you've been really starting.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember doing the math, and it was something like in 4 months, I think I'd done stand up like once or twice leading up to the contest.
Yeah.
So I wasn't feeling very oily and ready. Like I felt very like, ugh.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was a tough year,
Yeah.
Tough to get people to come out to shows, and
Right.
just that was a tough year. That was an interesting year to have won.
Yeah. Or even just the audience too. I remember in past years pre-COVID, it just being packed and you could feel the electric energy in the air. And there was still some electricity in the air that night, but it just was sparse. People were required to be like, you guys still had like
It
the
was
6
distance.
feet
I mean, you
spacing.
literally couldn't have. That
Yeah.
was when you could not have as many people in the room
Right.
as you normally would have had. So like a sold out crowd was 100 people instead of 300 people.
Yeah. And that
It's a huge difference.
Yeah, I remember the energy just feeling different, and it doesn't compare to like almost how you feel like it will be in your mind. Not to say it was underwhelming. It was just a different energy
Well,
than
you
I
know
imagined.
exactly what this room is like when it's full.
Yes.
You've done it a bunch of times,
It's
and
the
no matter
best.
how good any room is, when you take out 2/3 of the seats, it's
Yeah.
gonna be less energetic. It's just any place.
And I
That's
think their
inevitable.
masks were on too.
Sure, and masks
Yeah.
being on. I mean, so
So
absolutely.
you're like, are you laughing? Yeah.
Yeah, that's all a really interesting challenge. I think that was for comedy, it wasn't like in sports, some people call it an asterisk year, but in comedy, it was like kind of a harder year in a weird way. You had to deal
Yeah.
with like everybody doing comedy had to deal with a lot of stuff that had nothing to do with the talking into the mic and the telling of the jokes
Right.
part.
Yeah.
And people were weird. People hadn't been among people. They hadn't been out.
Yeah.
It was a weird time to do comedy.
It really was. And even I just remember afterwards, it felt like people left really fast. And even I've talked to people and what
Not
hap-
everybody. One guy stuck around.
Good memory. But I remember I think it was Nate Nickel asked me like, so what opportunities arose for you after you won? And media wise, there was a lot, especially just being the first woman to win the contest. Well, I feel like it was the media that everyone kind of gets, and then some because
Sure.
of that edge.
You were the first woman to ever win the contest?
Apparently,
Really?
that was like what all the headlines were.
I didn't remember that. That's crazy.
So the fact that Mallory won this past year, it's kind of
Yeah.
like sweet.
Well,
Paving the way.
Danielle almost won one year. Danielle was second. Mary Mack was third. Andy Erickson was second. That's really interesting.
Yeah, because all the articles like Star Tribune, City Pages, RIP,
Mhm.
and like all the publishings like had people commenting like, didn't Mary Mack win? Didn't everyone else that you listed? And then because like Andy Erickson won 2 other different contests, so I had a lot. I even had well-known Acme goers who I was annoyed because I'm like, can't you just be happy for me? I just remember them being like, you're actually not the first. Yeah. It's like, actually I am. So, and then, sent all the headlines. And that, not that that's what it's about, but it's definitely a sweeter taste
Sure.
realizing that. So
Yeah.
apparently the first 10 years records weren't kept. So
Yeah, it was a little more. It could have. Yeah, it was a
So like
little
honestly, I don't know,
Yeah.
but
in the documented history.
yes, documented history. So that felt really freaking good.
Nice.
Yeah.
Do you have any advice for people doing the contest?
Oh man. Just do it. Take the time to do it right. I would say it's more than just, we'll see what happens. Like, take the time to prepare. It happens once a year. It's an amateur contest. It's really like you got 3 attempts. And the classic cheesy have fun. Like, honestly, if you go on the stage and you're not ready to have fun and be present, the audience will feel that. Be ready to connect with them and absorb that space. Give it all your energy, and you got it.
Nice. And try not to get COVID for 10 weeks before you do comedy, ideally.
Please. Yeah.
and the prize could be beyond your wildest dreams.
Ah,
Well, thanks so much, Lisa, for coming out. And thanks for doing this. And congratulations again.
This has been an advertisement for Hinge. Yeah.
And my Hinge profile is I don't sadly, I'm so old I don't even know what Hinge is, but I believe you. I'll have to win a contest if I want to make out with a cute boy.
Thank you, Brian.
Thanks very much.